Hi, it's Dr. Lori. Welcome back to another episode of Ask Dr. Lori. Let's get started. Let's see what we've got in here. First question. What's your opinion on worth point and eBay sold listings being used to determine value? Thank you, and like many other people, I really love you, Dr. Lori. I love your videos. Oh, thank you. Well, I think that worth point and eBay to use as a place for determining value is not the only place you should be looking. Couple things. First of all, when you're looking at old auction records, which is basically what you're looking at on these particular elements, on these particular sites, you want to be careful, because what experts do is we analyze the whole market. We don't just look at lists, because in looking at these lists, you're not analyzing the whole market. You're not seeing what's happening in the market. Worth point, it's old auction records. So I don't, how is an old or outdated auction record from 1999 really going to help you, when you're trying to sell this year? So that's one of the things I would say be careful of. I don't have anything against it. I think it's interesting to look at, right? But a lot of people don't learn that much from them. As for eBay sold listings, you have to know what the intention is, right? So you have to know, is the person who sold that particular piece, is that particular piece being sold by someone who wants to inflate the market and has a big inventory of these pieces? Is it from somebody who doesn't really know the values and is just trying to get rid of something that they got for free? You don't really know. So you have to be careful of that. Analyzing the market is not only looking at one particular place that sells items. That's why some people prefer all the different auction records that come together on a place like WorthPoint. Some people say, well, at least I'm seeing different places or different sites or different auctions where something's sold. Okay, but you have to analyze what the market is today and why things are popular, valuable today. So you're not selling in 2006 back when that auction took place. You're selling today. So you want to think about that. As for the selling listings, you have to be careful of that, because a lot of the times it's, seller A sold to buyer A. Well, buyer A happens to be seller A's brother. So you've got, a lot of that going on too. So you have to be careful of that. I also will tell you that be careful of those folks who are saying that they're collectors when really they're just trying to buy something from you. Then they have no intention of collecting it. They have intention of reselling it. Anyway, so I think everything's a good source. However, your best source really is asking an expert and knowing and gaining that expertise. I don't have anything against it, but I don't really think that they're the best, most accurate places for you to analyze the market. That's only going to happen when you become familiar and comfortable with what you are buying and selling. So there you go. There's my answer for that. Then I want to talk with you about this episode's bowl. In this particular case, it's a variation on a bowl. It's actually a biscuit jar. Has a lid too. This particular one is an American biscuit jar, and it is transferware, made in the United States. It's made of porcelain. It's in very good condition. It dates to about 1900 to 1910. And it has the original lid. The original lid is in perfect condition. And value on this particular piece, just about $100. It's really quite beautiful. And it was from the time when we would eat biscuits, right? A biscuit jar, little cookies, and the cookies were smaller. Now we got into the 1950s and the cookie jars got bigger, and so did we get bigger because we had more sugar, more cookies. Anyway, that's what you're looking at here. That's the bowl. Let's get back to some more questions. Let's see, what else have we got here? I got something in my throat. All right. Okay, I think it's gone. Do you ever find that you eat pasta the night before and then you have something in your throat the whole next day? I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the gluten. I don't know. I never learned the whole thing about gluten. A lot of you folks have the gluten thing. You're going to have to teach me about gluten. Are you gluten sensitive, this whole thing? But I do find that pasta, not too good. Did you ever try the bean pasta? The bean pasta is very good. I have bean pasta often. I guess it has a lot of fiber and it has a lot of protein. So that's my other new tip for those of us who are eating. Okay, Dr. Lori, was it common for people living in Victorian times to use truncated dates? Example, apostrophe 74, apostrophe 96. I sometimes find items with dates like that on them, but I'm suspect as they look like they're not antique. Yeah, actually, the Victorian times they did use those dates. They just put like a little apostrophe 74. Here's how I know this, actually, and it doesn't come from all my years in museums and all my years with antiques and appraisals. It was my mother. My mother was very, very good in math. She was born in 1922, and she was very good in math. And she would always say, oh, ot 6, oh, ot 5, that kind of thing. And that ot sound was a sound that they were taught, that she was taught in the 30s going through school, which would indicate that little apostrophe, the ot. Right? As opposed to saying 1906, she would actually say like that, and that would mean the apostrophe, which would then show you the 06, which would be the last two numbers. Kind of interesting how our language changes too, or what linguistics does with that. But yes, the Victorians, so those people who were living in the Victorian era, which is from about 1837 till about 1901, when Queen Victoria reigned, right, in England. But during the Victorian era, particularly at the end of the 1800s, they did use those particular little symbol, that little apostrophe, and then two numbers to indicate the year. However, remember, there are people out there who are going to fake that, who are going to try to make you believe that you just found something Victorian, or they're trying to sell you something Victorian, and they put that on there trying to fake it. So yes, it was something that came into widespread use. It was actually used more in the early 20th century than in the late 19th century or the Victorian era. But yes, it was used by the Victorians too. But that's a good question. That's one of those things that you say, hey, I'm not really sure about this. And those are the questions that I'm always happy to answer for you. All right, let's see what else we've got here. Oh yeah, some days it feels like it's the Victorian era. Dr. Lori, are there really 3 different appraisal values? If so, what are they? Oh, there's retail value, there's auction value, there's insurance value. So retail value is oftentimes called fair market value. So fair market value or retail value, auction value, insurance value. Yes, there really are 3. People go, what do you mean? Why isn't it just the value? Well, it's not just the value, because sometimes the purpose of the appraisal is different. And this is why you need an expert. So this is why I'm here. So basically what you're looking at here is insurance value is replacement value. That's the value that if you have to insure the piece, it has to have a value that takes into consideration you spending the time, money, energy, and effort to get a new one or to replace it. That's insurance value. Then there is fair market value. What will the market bear if there is not a sale that is a forced sale? So retail value, or of course fair market value, means what's the market think it's worth? And that's where you have to do the analysis. That's where you have to analyze the market and not just read, listings from eBay or wherever. So that's the other one. And then the third one's auction value, and people are oftentimes surprised to learn that auction value is of course usually lower than fair market or retail value because auction value is usually the value that they're selling to the trade. So the auction is usually selling to someone, a reseller typically, who's going to then resell the piece. So they need to get it lower at a lower price than, of course, the retail value, because the retail value, they can then mark it up. Hope that's clear, but yes, there are 3 different types of appraisal values, not just one. Good question, very good, insightful. Okay. And there's this. Hi, Dr. Lori. At what point in time does an item become museum worthy? Okay, there's no point in time when, this is a 3 or 4 part question, so I'm going to do it in parts. There's not a particular point in time when an item becomes museum worthy. Some items are museum worthy right out of the chute. Some items become museum worthy. Well, how does that happen? Well, some items are museum worthy. For example, I don't know, Abraham Lincoln's top hat would be museum worthy. Somebody cares about seeing that. Okay, I've appraised a lot of Abraham Lincoln stuff. I appraised Abraham Lincoln's, a piece of the fabric from his coat on the night that he was at, of course, the Ford's Theater and was assassinated. I appraised that, Abraham Lincoln. And I've appraised other things that relate to Lincoln, like his campaign buttons and, of course, some of his autographs and some sculptures relating to him and so on and so forth. So that's one of the things that's museum worthy, right out of the chute. something can become museum worthy, right? So if there is an object that then becomes a part of a historical narrative, for example. Oh, it's the rocking chair that was given to President Kennedy on his birthday. I don't know, whatever it might be. That could also be museum worthy. So it doesn't happen at a particular time. And it's not about age. So this implies that it's about age. You know, when does an item become museum worthy? Does it have to be 100 years old? Does it have to be an antique? No. Okay. Is there special criteria that has to be met for a piece to go into a museum? Yes, as you well know, I've spent many years as a museum curator and a museum director. And I will tell you that there is criteria that has to be met. We don't just take anything, and don't think that everything in a museum is A, very high in value, B, historical, C, fantastic. There's a lot of junk in museums too. Oh my gosh, Dr. Lori, really? Yes, and there are reasons for this. Wait, I'm going to tell you the inside scoop. Very interesting story about your museum career, Dr. Lori. Thanks for sharing. I really enjoyed the episode when I guess I talked about my museum career. There are basically a lot of things that happen when someone says, I want my piece to go into your museum. Okay, so here are some of the things that happen. Who's the donor? Who is this person? What does this person want? You say, what do you mean, what do they want? Well, the museum has to decide, is it within, first of all, their program or their mission? You know, you come to a museum that has 1,000 Rembrandts. Do they want 1,001? Can they take care of 1,001? Your 1,001 Rembrandt, they may not want because they already have one like it, or they don't want or have the means to take care of it. There's that. Then there are museum donors. If the donor comes in and says, I'm giving you this gift only if you put it on display always, only if your curator writes about it in her next 5 books, only if this happens and that happens and this other thing happens, oh, you always give my family free admission to the museum. There's lots of things that go on, lots of deals that are made. So you want to think about that with respect to it too. The other thing about when a piece is being offered to a museum, is it on long-term loan? Is it on short-term loan? Less than a year, short-term loan. More than a year, long-term loan. Is it on permanent loan? I'm never going to take it again, and when I die, you're going to get it. That's different. It's on loan until this person's alive, but then it's going to actually be gifted to the museum. A lot of things happen. It's a deal. It's an exchange, basically, in some way. So when it comes to this with respect to objects being worthy of a museum, museum professionals look for historical objects, objects that will tell a story of a culture, of a time, of a place, of a person. And also, it's important that these pieces are in good condition. If they're not, oftentimes the museum with the donor will come together and make a decision about whether or not they invest in repairing or restoring that piece. But if you have a piece that you think you want to go to a museum, or you think that should be in a museum, first of all, contact the museum. Don't just assume that they want it out of the chute. Contact them, have a conversation, explain what you have, and maybe it could end up in your museum too. It's really a wonderful thing. You can learn a lot from museums where you're not tempted to buy, but that's a great question. So thanks for that question. What else is in the bowl? Let's see what else we've got in the bowl. Hi, Dr. Lori. Why does a name like Tiffany increase the value of a piece of jewelry way beyond its value in terms of gold or silver weight? Okay. It's about brand names. So Tiffany is a brand name that has established itself as being quality. So you are buying the Tiffany quality. You are the brand name. You know, like Dr. Lori, it's a brand name. So, you know, you're buying that particular quality. The other thing about this particular question is that you're also buying design value. There are great designers, Elsa Peretti, and of course, Paloma Picasso, and other designers associated with Tiffany, and the legacy of Louis come for Tiffany. So using Tiffany as an example, and I've appraised a lot of Tiffany stuff. I've appraised the Tiffany jewelry, I've appraised Tiffany lamps. Oh, gorgeous Tiffany lamps. I remember the floor lamp with the sunflowers, beautiful lamp. There was a the story of again about the Tiffany lamp that came into one of my events wrapped in a cat's bed. It was the Dragonfly Tiffany worth $500,000, and it was wrapped in a cat's bed with all the fur flying. Oh gosh, that was a scene. And that particular example, and Tiffany in general, relates to design value. So design value is also important. It's why I always tell you guys, you want to melt everything down. Well, be careful about melting things down, because in fact, you're not only losing an antique value, but you're losing the design value. There's a value in the designers and the fact that the designers have designed a piece a certain way. So for the most part, Tiffany, in fact, in these pieces, you're looking at brand name, and you're also looking, of course, for design value. Look for quality. Sometimes it comes with brand name. A lot of times you're going to be able to identify it yourself as you continue to educate your eyeballs, and I'm going to help you do that. I hope you will remember to share the videos. They're really important to me. If you share them, I want to spread the word, and I'm going to ask you to help me spread the word. I'm Dr. Lori, happy to give you my expert answers to your great questions. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.